Okay, hello everyone. I've been told I have to stand right here, so I'm going to try and not move around too much. Okay, so what I want to do, hopefully, is start with a little bit by painting a bit of a picture, because a lot of you in this room might already work in this industry. Perhaps you're looking to get into this space. Perhaps you're just looking to understand a little bit more. But it's always interesting, because no matter who you ask about this industry or this space, everyone has a different definition of how it works and who it's with. So I'm going to paint a picture of how we've been able to split up this industry a little bit, and hopefully that will set the basis for some of the challenges that we're going to explore in a moment. So picture this, I guess, the Californian gold rush era. It's the Wild West of that space. And what happens with this is you have a lot of different people operating within this space. And the first one that we've been able to say, okay, you've got the enablers, right? The enablers are the infrastructure layer of this kind of gold rush era, where you have the train lines, you have the banks, you have this infrastructure that enables you to be able to get to the gold, to deliver the gold. Then you've got the suppliers. These are the people who are making the Levi's. These are the people making the pickaxes and all the things that enable you to actually mine the gold. Then you've also got the creators, who are kind of the miners. These are the people that they found the gold, now they're mining the gold, and they're making it into something and finding something that's actually useful from it. And then finally, you've got the area of adopters, where these are taking the gold and now putting it into an end product, whether it's jewelry or whether it's a piece of something that someone wants. So when you look at the industry from this perspective, you've kind of got a split up. There's only a few logos there to give you an idea, but there's a lot of different moving parts that overlap in lots of different ways for this industry space that we operate within. And what that means for everyone in here is there's lots and lots and lots of different challenges, but the most interesting thing is every single person that intersects within this space has something kind of very similar on that front. So before we started this particular presentation and also kind of what we were doing, we said to ourselves, okay, rather than guess what these challenges are, why don't we actually ask people directly? People like you in the room. So first of all, I just wanted to ask a question. This is kind of a fail-proof kind of question to the room. Who here has experienced a challenge within this industry or this space? I would expect everyone to put their hands up on this, right? There's not a single person that doesn't. So first of all, you're not alone with this. But also, 280 other people are also not alone in this. So we surveyed a bunch of people directly. These are actually direct conversations and interviews that we did. And we said, okay, what are the challenges that you guys face? By far and large, the biggest one across the industry was building connections, okay? Hence why probably a lot of you are in this room today, because you're here to meet people and talk to people. But then also you've got other areas, such as increasing market visibility. How do you get your brand out there? How do you get what you do out there a lot more? And then also, probably one that a lot of people relate to is also access to finance. Probably a lot of startups here, people looking to get investment, people looking to find their first few clients. So the top three of these challenges is what I'd like to hopefully focus on within this conversation and also have a little bit of talk within that. But I also understand that some of you haven't ever heard of AXR or what we do or things like that. So rather than just say as well, oh, these are random challenges, these are random things, I want to talk from the perspective of the people that we've worked with, the people that are part of our community. And the only way we've been able to do that was that over the last 7 years or so, we hosted the VR Awards, first one in 2017. I can see a few people here who have been to the awards, which is awesome. Over the last 7 years, we've looked at quite literally thousands and thousands of different experiences and projects across the board, which has enabled us to have these conversations with people like these interviews as an example. And in 2019, we actually launched AXR, which was more of a community to be able to take all of these amazing projects and amazing people and actually say, okay, what can we do to help and to support? And so that's the insight that I'm drawing from. I'm not talking from just personal experience. I have spoken to a lot of people within our community to be able to say, okay, what are you doing to be able to tackle these kind of things? So if you were to look at the first one, which is making connections, the first thing that's very, very clear from just the exhibition and the people that are talking here today is that our industry is split between lots of different spaces. So you've got a lot of the entertainment and media side of things. Who here has perhaps tried to explain that they work in XR or VR to their friends and they immediately think, video games. Yeah, you're a video game developer. The reality is, most of us know this, is that this space and this industry is split up between loads and loads of different vertices, between healthcare, enterprise, and different spaces like that. So much so that actually during the awards side of things, you can see here that the biggest category of nominations that we tend to get tends to be in education, training, and enterprise sectors. Gaming actually makes up a small public proportion of all of that. I know this is a little bit of not full data picture here, but it's a really good way to just for us to get a pulse on, okay, what areas of this industry are growing. Now, when you combine all of these different vertices that people are operating in on an international scale, right? Because this is the other thing about it, is we're not limited to just local businesses and local regions. Every single person in here is operating in a different country, in a different location, kind of worldwide. We have to be everywhere pretty much. When you combine these two elements, and then you also combine the element that actually most of the people in this room aren't just your typical, developer person that you think of. You've also got people working across different spaces, whether they're full-time in sales and marketing, whether they're in operations and in writing, or maybe they're a storyteller. You've got all of these different areas of things that people tend to operate within. So when you combine these elements, it becomes incredibly difficult to actually make those meaningful connections. And the one thing, I don't want to offend anyone, but I wrote a LinkedIn post about that there's no such thing as a chief metaverse officer. But the thing is as well, if you go on LinkedIn or you go on places like that, you're going to find someone like this. This is a made-up person, by the way. You're going to find someone like this. And who do you trust? Who do you know is a real, genuine expert in this space if they're just saying that, okay, yeah, I know about this? Because the reality is as well is there isn't really any true experts within this space. There's specialists. There's people who know their stuff and they're growing with it and stuff like that. There's only a handful of people on my fingers that I can count to today that I would say, okay, they are a genuine expert within this space. So this leads to this challenge of making connections. So what do we do about that, and what do some of the people that we've worked with do about that? Well, in fact, from what we've seen, the most successful companies that work within this space, they focus on quality over quantity. So it's really, really easy to come to an event like this and say, I want to meet so many people, different people. I want to get as many contacts into my book as possible. It's really easy to do that. But then what ends up happening within these companies and within this space is they leave the event and no one remembers you, or you don't remember those conversations. The best kind of conversations that we've had and a lot of the communities and members that we work with have are people that they've gone out for dinner with, or they've been able to have a nice long conversation with. So the quality really, really does matter within this space, and it's hard sometimes to find that. But actually to find that quality as well is a lot of people make the mistake of only going to XR-related events, when actually what we need to be also focusing on is getting out of this bubble that we're in. Because also we're surrounded by lots and lots of really enthusiastic people who are really, really excited about what we do, and it's fantastic. But then when you want to validate your product or validate what you're trying to do within this space, you don't really have that real market or that real test for it. So one of the things that we've seen a lot of people who are actually building those connections and building those relationships and making meaningful connections, they're at events that are where their clients will be at. They're at events where the partners that they could work with are at. They're still at these events because these are incredibly important to be able to build those partnerships and those relationships, especially with hardware manufacturers and other people. But actually, going beyond that is the next step for a lot of people in this space. And then one thing that I'm a really big advocate for, and what we've seen has worked incredibly well, is also mentoring. Whether it's yourself in the need of a mentor, or whether it's yourself with an expertise or particular area to share, everyone in this room has a particular interest or expertise that you can help someone else with, right? And there's new people always constantly getting into this space, and there's people who have different skill sets from different areas of the space. And actually, this is one of the most invaluable ways to build a meaningful connection with people, because you have this shared sense of learning and shared sense of knowledge sharing and communication that has a huge impact going forward. So I would encourage a lot of you here to actually explore the mentoring side of things as well, and also see, okay, who is it that you've spoken to at this event today or yesterday that is actually someone you want to continue a conversation with and you could learn from, and perhaps also identify someone that you could also share some ideas with and knowledge with. So building those connections is clear. Now, as we go through this presentation, I want to be clear. There's not an answer to every single challenge within this space, because it relies on lots of different moving factors. It relies on you. It relies on the industry keeping up. It relies on a lot of different factors. But also, there's a lot of different communities and a lot of different groups which you may be aware of, whether it's on Slack or Discord or Facebook or actually events and stuff like that, that you can actually get involved with and get started with. Here today, for example, we partnered with XR Vienna, with Women in Immersive Tech, and lots of different kind of groups to be able to say, okay, you've got some really cool people, you've got really cool people, let's bring you together. So I'd encourage you to also get involved in these groups where you can, even if it's not on an active basis. I'm sure many of you are also in the WhatsApp group, for example, of AWE today and things like that, so you can actually meet people and talk to people, get stuck into them, and you can understand a little bit more. But also, if you want a full list of recommended events that we've all been to, whether it's things like GDC in San Francisco through to AWE or Immersive Tech Week, we can also share that with everyone afterwards, because there's a lot of really different things that happen there. Okay, we could spend all day on these different sections, so I'm going to just move straight on to market visibility. Can I just get a gauge of the room here? If I was to say, if you owned your first headset in 2017, if anyone put their hands up, did you have a headset in 2017? Okay, we've got a few. 2018? Okay, 2019, 2020? Okay, cool, okay, so there's a good range. So what you may know already from this as well is that the market of this space, and I've used the Oculus as an example here, from 2016 to 2019 as an example of the types of, the difference in this. So what's really been difficult for a lot of the companies over time is obviously market access to hardware and actually access to people who own headsets and devices. You're in a really lucky position where today it's much easier to actually get your hands on hardware at an affordable price. But to think that people in 2016 were spending over $2,000 or so to be able to get access to a piece of hardware made life incredibly difficult. The good news is, for example, the Quest itself has already shipped now over the last few years around 20 million units. So there's a lot more people that have their hands on it. However, 20 million units, if you guys are doing the math, is also way less than we need out there from a Quest perspective. There's also Pico, HTC, and other devices, but from a human perspective, there's also not enough people that have access to hardware still, which makes it difficult alone to be able to say to someone, hey, I work in this space, I do this, but then also you've got to say, would you like to try this? Oh, sorry, I don't have a device. Okay, you're going to have to come here. We're going to have to try this. And as a result of the companies that we surveyed, most of them find that they spend their time on client education, right? So they're spending over 50% of their time actually educating their clients on the technology, on the interest of things, rather than being able to say, okay, I want to make this stuff, I want to do this stuff, which makes it incredibly difficult. And there's a great PwC report that we read recently, using the word metaverse, was what are the challenges of some of the top actual Fortune 500 companies in this space when it came to this idea of metaverse. And surprise, surprise, the biggest challenge was skills, upskilling people, finding the right talent, all of that kind of stuff. So you've also got this element of external client education, but also internal team education, right? So again, what do we do about that? And what have we seen people doing about that? You've got elements such as focusing on the key parts of internal team education, and external client education, which sounds obvious, but it's actually not as easy as it seems, especially when a lot of us want to do, and we want to make, and we want to explore and be the very best that we have in this space. So we tried a few different things with people over the course of this, through to not using any VR headsets at all, through to the actual concept of actually bringing hardware in. One of the most favorite things that we ever did is we did a workshop with UAL, London College of Communication, where we brought in 40 fashion students. And these were students who aren't your typical techie people. They're not really kind of on the computer science programs. These are pure fashion students who came in for the day, out of college, came to the university, and we did a full course with them for just the day. Now, the first half of the day, we didn't bring any headsets into it at all. We actually talked about, okay, how do we actually think in 3D, as an example, right? So it was all actually paper-based, where people came in, and we actually had a 360 kind of environment on a piece of paper. And the students absolutely fell in love with this idea. And by the time we started to introduce headsets into it, they were already thinking in the correct way of how do we look at this as a 3D environment? How do we look at things that are beyond just gimmicks of doing what we can do in real life versus actually doing something that you can't ever do? Imaginations run wild when you can remove the barriers from everything. And in lots of ways, that's also what what VR can do for people as well. And then when we started to introduce the hardware, it wasn't that much of a leap beyond that kind of front of things. Another thing that we see a lot of companies do, for example, as well, from the internal client education perspective, is that how many of you actually own a headset, like right now? Okay. Did you buy it yourselves, or did your companies help you with it, or anything like that? Right, so this is the other thing, is if you run an XR company in this space, or you actually are working for one of those things, your company should be helping you to get your own headset. Beyond just actually using a company headset, actually owning your own headset shifts the mindset completely from being able to say, okay, I'm trying it, I'm working in this space, to I am a VR person, I'm an XR person, I'm working with this kind of stuff. And that mentality shift was huge as well with people that we've worked with, from just having your own headset versus using someone else's or things like that, helps a lot with the internal education perspective. And actually running things and doing things within these spaces and trying things out, exploring things, is huge. I mean, we're lucky that we get to experience so many different experiences for the awards and try different things. But if you are an individual in this side of things as well, just going out there and actually trying what people are making and what people are exploring puts you 10 times ahead of where a lot of other people are in that space. But also then, how do you approach this from a client perspective? Well, also, we do something very similar to what you do on an internal perspective. This was actually a great example where we just took different vertices, whether it's education or entertainment or architecture, and we asked the groups to just go wild and just look at this from a conceptualization point of view. How can you use different things in different ways and explore this, right? And just having this ideation sessions alone with clients makes a huge case for being able to help with those perspectives. But it's hard. It's hard when you are a creator or you're wanting to do something, because you do have to actually spend time on that. And this is where actually having strong use cases has a huge impact on this as well, and where a lot of people actually fall off, is that if you are actually making stuff in this place or you're doing stuff, you need to document that process. And you need to go through the whole process of actually saying, okay, here is a real case study of how this is really being used by my clients or by people in this space. And if other people beyond just you start doing this, we're able to collect a lot of this data and pull it together into real meaningful stuff. Because what clients don't want to see, they don't want to see gimmicks. They don't want to see a marketing project that's just going to die within a year, because that's where they invest a bit of R&D budget in, and then that money never comes back again. And what we want in this room is ongoing projects that we can do that actually have an impact on people and society kind of long term. And often it can be really difficult to be able to get going, and that's why it's really important to also have very strong corporate partnerships with some of the hardware manufacturers, with some of the larger scale corporations, to be able to actually get that initial push from the offset. And actually what's quite interesting, a lot of the really big consulting firms, whether it's PwC or Accenture or things like that, they'll use a lot of smaller studios within this space to get to the place that they need to have some really strong kind of use cases and things from that perspective. Okay, but then also a lot of this is meaningless if we don't have the money to do it, right? Which is why access to finance is one of the other really big critical elements for a lot of people in this space. Now, what makes this challenging is that investment in immersive technology has been on a slight decline through 2022, and we've seen it kind of a little bit bumpy, a little bit wavy through 2023 as well, which has made it really, really difficult. And I like to use this statistic because I don't like to say it's a loss, because lots of revenue, lots of headlines on journalists and things like that will say Meta lost a certain amount. I like to say they spent. They spent kind of 13.7 billion. Apparently that was losses in revenue on top of the expenses that they had. But they've been spending a lot of money on that space, as an example, right? So it costs a lot in R&D as one perspective of just 1 year in this space to be able to grow, right? So that's why when it actually comes to accessing finance, whether it's investment or clients or things like that, the first step that people make a big mistake on is they spread very thin and they do a shotgun approach on lots and lots of different types of investors. When actually choosing your investors carefully makes a huge impact and difference, because the amount of investors that have come to us and said, it's really frustrating when this startup comes to us and hasn't even looked at the portfolio of companies that we've invested in and think that we should give them some cash, it makes a huge annoyance. And you're wasting your time going through all of these different motions when you should be really looking at the investors carefully. Also look at location. For example, VC funding per capita makes a huge difference. I was speaking to someone yesterday. A seed investment in pre-seed investment, seed investment in Europe can be as little or as much as 20K, whereas a seed investment in the US could be considered between 1 to 3 million, right? So it makes a huge difference on risk and also where people are at, as an example. And don't be afraid to actually look and explore alternative financing models, because actually there's a lot of options, whether it's, for example, one of our members, Cognitive 3D, they're based in Canada. They have been able to support a lot of the work that they do just alone through financing with government programs and being able to get going on certain R&D projects, R&D tax credits as an example. So really look at the alternative side of this, because governments, especially within Europe, are really, really great from tax incentive perspectives to be able to support projects that are brand new and have a lot of innovation and a lot of R&D on as well. And also there's some really great programs that are in here at AWE, from accelerated programs, to be able to say, okay, are there accelerators, local incubators, or things like that that are around that help you get going? Because the biggest mistake as well that a lot of startups make is they go out thinking that they're ready for investment. But the problem is that they're at the first moment of their journey still. And there's a lot of stuff that you need to learn of the nuances of what are investors looking for, what are they actually looking to see long-term from your perspective that you may never have known or never have explored before. So again, I could go on about this forever. I'll just wrap up a little bit. Diversify your revenue streams, of course. Look at different forms of hardware. Don't just look at VR perspective. Looking at devices like AR and other devices, 2D devices as well. How can you interoperate with that? Because that diversifies your revenue streams. And look, none of us want to be like this on our birthday or like this alone in the space. We want to be more like this together as a community, right? And that's why we're all here today, right? So let's look at how can we actually work together within this space. We're still small enough as an industry where we're able to talk to each other, able to meet someone brand new, and someone who has probably solved the problem or challenge that you already have is probably sitting right next to you right now. So hopefully after this talk, say hello to your neighbor, and let's tackle these challenges together.
Thank you so much, Daniel. We have some time for a couple of questions. Anybody wants to No, apparently I hear a no. We didn't have time, so thank you so much.
Okay.
If there is anything that I agree with in this space is that network got us far together.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.